Mike, and then there. Hey folks, how you doing? O'Brien Guitars, Robbie O'Brien here. Thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate my son who is behind the computer here, behind the camera. He's giving me a hand, and I hope everybody can hear me. I've got one mic in one ear here. I got the other ear open. So somebody give me a thumbs up in the chat box here to make sure that I am actually going live here. Jago, are we live there?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. I want to thank Jim Deeming for the music that we had going on there. That is called A Pick in My Pocket. And Jim Deeming wrote that song and does some fantastic guitar playing. He's a local player here in Colorado. He actually plays some music on some of my video courses. And I really appreciate Jim letting me use his music there. I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can tonight here. I'm looking at the chat box here. Wow, we got somebody watching all the way from Japan. Congratulations for, thank you for tuning in. And let's see, we got people in Brazil, we got people in Ecuador. My gosh, we got people from all over the place. So I'm doing this. I started doing lives over 10 years ago. I would do lives for my students and for a private chat group that I run. And I started that over 10 years ago. That was even before Facebook and YouTube had the live platforms. I was using the Adobe platform back then to do it, and it was actually very popular with my students. It wasn't a around the world kind of thing. It was just for my local students and for those on my private chat group. And so I'm no stranger to lives, but I am kind of strange to this new platform, to the YouTube and Facebook type platform. So I'm going to start getting back into some lives. I did a few here recently during the quarantine time, and it seems that people enjoyed it. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing some more lives. If you think that you have a question, Luthier related or not, feel free to put it in the chat box here, and I will try and answer as many as I can. Also, I started offering a scholarship program recently here at O'Brien Guitars. I was contacted by a gentleman in California, and that person is a philanthropist and likes raising money for causes that he believes in. And so he contacted me, got a hold of some of my online courses, and said, I really like what you're doing. I'd like to participate in some fashion. And so I left it up to him, and he said, why don't we start a scholarship program for young and upcoming luthiers, somebody that would like to, come to a class here at my shop, but doesn't have the financial means necessary to do it. So he started a GoFundMe page, and that GoFundMe page, the link is somewhere here in the chat box. If you look there, it says to donate to the O'Brien Guitar Scholarship Fund. Click here, and it's there in the chat box. And I would appreciate it that if you feel moved here to please help and give the opportunity to someone that is not able to. And the person that is helping me do this specifically said he wants somebody young. He doesn't want somebody in the older generation. He wants a new up-and-coming luthier to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. So it says there's some deep clicking here. Do you hear any deep clicking on your end, Chago?
Deep clicking?
Yeah.
No.
I don't hear any deep clicking on my end here. And my son who's
Oh no, there's a tiny bit when you have really loud, when you suddenly talk really loud.
Okay, so
just gonna keep your voice
here, let me here, I'll just bump the mic down just a little bit.
There you go, yeah, do that.
There we go. All right, that should do it. So we're still trying to dial in the technical aspects here. And my son is putting in the chat box here a link to the scholarship fund. So if you feel like you want to help contribute to that, I certainly appreciate that. Also, if you want to help support the O'Brien Guitars Scholarship Fund for my kids going to college, then you can go over to my website and check out all of the online courses that I have available. So let's check the chat box here. Chuck, you see any questions coming up?
There was one. Will your website be updated soon with on-site class availability for 2020?
Good question. In fact, I've got a list of things here that I wanted to talk about this evening. And one of the things on the list is my 2021 teaching schedule. Uh, Usually, right now, I have my 2020 schedule still up, and I usually don't put my following year, which in this case would be 2021, I usually don't put that up until about November. And it's getting close. But when I put it up, it's usually already full. And that happens because people throughout the year have contacted me and asked to get on my calendar. And so we pick out some dates and schedule. And then when I officially announce, my schedule is generally full. Now, right now, my 2021 schedule is about half full. So if you're interested in coming and building a guitar with me in my shop here in a private setting, then go ahead and contact me and let's get some dates on the calendar because they will fill up fast. So I should have the new schedule up soon, but it's been a crazy year and I haven't done it yet. So I'll get it up as soon as I can. Let's see, what else we got here? Classical guitar neck designs for beginning builders. What do you recommend? That's a great question. That's from John Mahoney. John, thanks for your question. There's several ways to go about it. LMI offers a semi-carved or pre-carved type neck. And if you don't want to go through all the math of how to figure out all the scale length and where you should slot it and how to shape the peg head and drill the slots and stuff, excuse me, drill the holes and slot it, then I recommend that you trot on over to LMI's website, do a search on the semi-carved or pre-carved classical guitar neck. Um, that would be much easier for a beginner, I think. All of the neck geometry has been taken care of it for you. It's also pre-carved, semi-carved. So there's a little bit of work done. Not all of the fun has been taken away. When you put your fretboard on, you're already close to the final specs of that fretboard. And so then you can just lightly sand or scrape right up to your final specs. So I would recommend doing that. Now, if you want to learn how to actually make a neck from a neck blank, then my online course shows you how to do that. And if you can follow instructions, folks, you can make a guitar. I pull out the neck blank in the chapter. I say, okay, measure out this much, draw a line, excuse me, and make a cut, and then flip that over, clean it up, make a scarf joint. Next, do this. Next, do that.
Oh, okay, now.
Okay, thank you. That's my son. Thank you. Everybody give a hand to Thiago here. That was my son.
Adios.
Thank you for getting us up and running here. He's the technical brains behind this. So thank you, Thiago. If you can follow instructions, just go to my website, o'brienguitars.com, and then follow the lessons on the classical guitar neck blank. And it's very straightforward, step by step. So if you can follow instructions, you can build a guitar, and you can make a classical guitar neck blank. Here's one from Brazil, from Jorge. Jorge, I remember you were in one of my classes in Brazil years ago. I'm going to speak English here, if that's okay. Let's see. You've made a guitar. Oh, have you ever made a guitar just with manual tools, no electrics, like Antonio Torres? No, I haven't. I always put a few power tools in there. Now, all of my students, when they come here, are generally amazed that the initial milling, once we get started on day one, there's some power tools in there to speed the process up. But once we get past the initial milling, it's mostly hand tools and very few templates. So most of my students are pretty amazed, and they comment about that, about how often we're using and how much we use just hand tools. I haven't done that yet. I have a good friend in Spain, Paco Chorobo, who's done a course with just hand tools. And I'm thinking about putting together a video course that would be just on hand tools. So we'll see. All right, let's see. It looks like my son's got that donation button there, that donation link uh, program to come up. It's coming up under Nightbot, which is the service that we're using to do that. So just click on that link and you can donate to the O'Brien Guitar Scholarship Fund. And it's going to be a full ride. I mean, we're talking airfare, hotel, tuition, materials, everything. It's about a $6,000 deal. So please help us provide that scholarship to someone. All right, here we go. Let's see, my son, one more thing. Turn down the audio a little bit more, Dad. It's still too loud. Okay, so we're going to come down just a little bit with the audio. Hopefully that's going to be okay. There we go. Tony is asking about the dreaded 14th fret hump on a steel string dread or OM. How to eliminate it, or is it even necessary to eliminate it? That's a great question, and I'm going to tie that in with a new video course that we just launched today. So let me go ahead and announce that, and then I'll get to your question here, Tony. Uh, I've been working with Michael Bashkin over the last month or two. Michael Bashkin is a local luthier here in Colorado, and he is from the Luthier on Luthier podcast fame. He invented that and has done quite well with that, quite successful. So I'm sure many of you have listened to his Luthier on Luthier podcast. If you haven't, I recommend that you do so. It's a great podcast where he interviews luthiers and talks about everything, not only luthier work, but how they got started and their lives in general. So it's a great thing. And he even featured me one time. So we did a course on fretwork. This is the most comprehensive course on fretwork that I've ever seen. It's available on my website, o'brienguitars.com. Go to the online course button, and we just launched it just a matter of hours ago, and people all over the world are already starting to purchase it. It's very comprehensive. I mean, it covers everything from new frets to refrets, fretboard geometry. I mean, just the basic thing of diagnosing what's wrong. Um, a lot of courses show you how to do things, but don't diagnose what the issue is. And it goes into things of, can we do a partial refret? Or do we need to do a full refret? Fretboard geometry, and this is where it ties into your question about the 14th fret hump. Um, Michael does some things with a notched straight edge and works on the fretboard geometry and makes sure that sucker is completely flat. And he eliminates that 14th fret hump. In fact, most builders from the neck to body joint down to the sound hole will have about a 64th to a 32nd slope down. Now that all goes great on theory, but once you put it under tension, then things change a bit. And so Michael, during his fret work, will put things under tension. It's a very comprehensive course. It talks about all different types of fret wire, compression fretting, bar frets, stainless steel. I mean, things that you usually don't associate with fretwork, but pops up every now and then. He addresses it all. It's also, we're offering it at a 10% discount. So I don't want this to be an advertisement for the course, obviously, but it is a big deal. I want to launch it and talk about it. So go over to my website, check out the online course with Michael Bashkin. It's got a big now available banner on it. So 14th fret, yeah, I like to get rid of it. Another interesting thing that Michael talks about in the course is a lot of people don't worry too much about the fretboard radius and geometry, and they level any imperfections out of the frets. Michael is very serious about getting all of that taken care of on the fretboard itself. That way you're not causing yourself problems down the road. So 14th fret hump. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see, 14th fret hump. Thank you, Ryan, for checking in and checking out the course. WD Custom Guitars. My guitar was made with Brazilian rosewood. The sides have some little waves across the sides after bending. How do you repair this? He says in Portuguese that he repaired that with humidity and clamps. Okay, Brazilian rosewood. We call it Brazilian crackwood. I lived in Brazil for 15 years. I see more Brazilian rosewood in the United States than I ever saw in Brazil. There's a lot more of it here. And related to that, when I lived in Brazil, I saw more American dollars in Brazil than I ever see here in the United States. Because here we use plastic, credit cards and checks. But there, any dollars, they're actually greenback. So I saw a lot more dollars there, and I see a lot more Brazilian rosewood here. Most of the Brazilian rosewood we get these days is junk. It's flat sawn, rift sawn. It's not quarter sawn. It's full of knots and cracks, and it's very wavy, spidery type grain. It's junk. And therefore, it's very prone to moving, especially when you introduce moisture and heat into the equation. And so it's not uncommon to have waves going across the grain. Now, what your solution was to add some moisture, heat, and clamps is a great solution. It works very well. Some people will leave their sides a little thicker, hoping that they can sand that stuff out. Occasionally it works, occasionally it doesn't. Another story, when I used to live in Brazil, I got a hold of some Brazilian rosewood once, and I was over at a guy's shop sawing it up. And I had a lot of logs. We were spending a whole day or two in there sawing this rosewood. And I turned around at one point, and behind me, I saw a bunch of older gentlemen against the wall. And they're talking among themselves and pointing at us. And so I turned off all the equipment. And I wandered over there. And I said, "Hey, can I help you guys?" And they said, "Oh, what are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm sawing up some Brazilian rosewood." And they got all kind of nostalgic. And they said, "Wow, would you mind if we have a look?" No, come on over. So they came over and started looking at what we were doing. And they said, "We haven't seen this in years. Uh, there's really not a lot of Brazilian rosewood in Brazil." Says, "We haven't seen this in years. In fact, the stuff that you're using, we used to throw away." I thought I had a pretty decent quality of Brazilian rosewood. Yeah, he said, "Yeah, we used to buy this stuff by the kilo, and we make our window frames or doors or whatever we were doing, and we would burn the rest. And what they would burn was better quality than what I was working with, according to them." So we call it Brazilian crackwood. At some point, it's going to crack. So, uh, just do the best you can. I like your heat and your moisture and your clamping solution. That works pretty good. Um, you also see that problem with flamed and quilted maples and things like that. Occasionally, even in Indian rosewood. I mean, wood is wood. It's going to do what it wants to do. And sometimes you'll have some little waviness across the grain. Try and leave it a little thicker if you can. Sand the majority out. All right, here we go. Roller sander, Ryan. That's also a good solution to it. If you have a roller sander with those pneumatic sanders, you can run across the sides. Some people do that. You have to leave your sides a little thicker to do that. Also, be careful you don't get your bindings too thin if you decide to do that. Are there any significant, this is Todd asking, are there any significant differences, different methods between guitars you build? My steel string guitars are basically the same method. My classical guitars are completely different tonally. Structurally, they look the same. A lot of the joinery is the same. However, tonally, they're completely different. For example, the problem with a steel string guitar is you have an abundance of treble. You have steel strings under a lot of tension. You build the guitar heavier to be able to resist that tension. So you're going to get a great treble response. You're not going to get any bass. The classical guitar, on the other hand, by the grace of God and the nature of the beast, you have great basses but no treble. It's a very lightly built instrument, nylon strings, low tension. And so, as luthiers, our mission, should we choose to accept, is on the classical guitar, do something to bring out the treble response. And on a steel string guitar, bring out the bass response. Now, on my steel string guitars, I use a typical Martin type X brace. And on my classical guitars, I've been using the Torres 7 fan type bracing for a number of years. So yeah, totally completely different. Structurally, they look similar and basically built the same. Except for classical guitar, I do a Spanish heel, and steel string guitar, I do a bolt-on mortise and tenon. All right, moving on down the chat group here. Let's see. Excuse me, the chat box. Oh, here we go. He's clarifying his question. Are there significant differences in the methods between the guitars you build on your schedule versus the 6-day class constraints? Yes, there is. In my class, where people come in and they build a guitar with me one-on-one privately in my shop, we do it in 6 days. We start on a Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're usually done by 4:35. If the first 3 days go well, then we're into finish work, and the next 2 days are half days. We work from 8 to noon on Thursday, 8 to noon on Friday. Saturday, come back 2 hours in the morning. We put the strings onto a setup. They go off to the airport, and away they go with the guitar. Um, my personal guitars, I build them the same. I just don't do it in that amount of time. A lot of the guitars that I build, my custom guitars, are one-off models. I have to slow down and think about it, different bindings and purfling schemes, perhaps some inlay and some bells and whistles that I don't normally do in my class. I take a lot longer. Also, in my classes, my students come in, I'm preparing the step for them. As they're doing that, I'm preparing the next step. And then as they move to the next step, I clean up behind them. And so it's like a little production line here, and I move them along. When I'm working by myself, I don't have anybody doing that for me. So there you go. All right. Uh, let's see. Should water-based finish cure before playing the guitar? Well, I would hope to. I hope so. I hope it would cure before you level and buff it. Yeah, water-based finishes, they've come a long way over the last 10 or 15 years. I went through a water-based phase about 15 years ago and was not impressed. These days, I'm a lot more impressed. They've come a long way. However, you still want them to fully cure before you level and buff the finish. So I hope you would make that happen. Give it time. The only time I've got myself in trouble doing finish work or any other work for that matter is when I try and rush it. So give it the time that it needs to cure and the time it needs to be put on the instrument. Don't ever try and rush it. Uh, let's see. Well, I'm getting quite a bit in Spanish and Portuguese here. So, Gaita Gaita for Brazil. Thank you very much for the compliment there. Says I'm an excellent professional and has been following my work. I appreciate that. Hey, Elaine, there in Tennessee. How you doing? Glad to see you're here. And she wants me to talk about why it matters that the back and top are quartersawn and what is the recommended drying. Good question. Why do we work with quartersawn lumber? Well, I mentioned earlier, when I was talking about the Brazilian rosewood, that most of what we get is flat sawn or rift sawn. Quarter sawn, the grain is actually straight up and down or perpendicular to the surface of the wood. And that makes for a more stable wood, stiffer wood. And so top wood especially, you want some type of stiff wood. And so quarter sawn offers you that. Now, the actual definition of quarter sawn, according to the U.S. Forest Service, is 90 degrees all the way down to about 45, if I'm not mistaken. Obviously, 45 wouldn't be instrument grade. You want instrument grade quarter sawn lumber. And I've bought wood from a lot of different suppliers over the years, and I've always come back to LMI. I know what their grading system is. If I call them and say, send me a 3A or a master grade top, I know that that's what's coming in the mail. And so I don't have to worry about it. A number of years ago, I was going to go down to Brazil, and I was going to take some material down there. They have a lot of back and side wood down there, but they don't have any top wood. And so I found a place on eBay, says, oh yeah, 4A, master grade, top, cedar, spruce, blah, blah, blah. I ordered it. Well, it was about 2A at best. And so I'm very aware of the grading system from LMI. I've been dealing with them for over 20 years. And so that's who I call for my top wood. Now, they kiln dry it. There's always that big debate. Should it be air dried? Should it be kiln dried? I usually don't work with it immediately. It sits around for a number of years, so it dries out quite a bit here in my shop. But we want to work with quarter sawn lumber. Who's that coming down here? Oh, that's Miss Brazil. How you doing, Miss Brazil? Oh, she's going to follow us on her iPad down here in the shop. So thanks for coming down. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Where you been all day? She's been out shopping. Today's my daughter's 14th birthday, so she's been out shopping with my daughter. All right, here, let's see. Elaine, I appreciate your question. There's always a big debate, air dry or kiln dry and what the tonal differences are. I'll let you guys figure that out. There's a few things that when I was teaching at the college, that I would avoid, and I put it in my syllabus every semester is, you know, topics that are off topic. Politics, religion, and Brazilian football clubs. Now, I threw the Brazilian football clubs in there because I used to live in Brazil, and it was kind of a humorous thing, and people got the message real quick. But over the years, I've needed to add things to it. Pepsi and Coke, Mac and PC, or Android or Apple. But perhaps I should add kiln dried or air dried to that list because people can go on and on about that. All right. Robbie, which thickness should be a cedar double top with Nomex and a spruce double top with Nomex? This is from Guitarra Sandoval, and it's in English, so I don't know where you're from, but thanks for tuning in. Good question. I was taught by a very good double top maker, Alan Dunwell, here in Colorado, that the actual thickness of your double top should be or could be about the actual thickness of a regular top. So you have a thin inner skin and a thin outer skin with the Nomex in between there. Now, even if it is a little thicker, it's generally lighter. And that's the advantage of the double top, is you can reduce mass. Reducing mass, maintaining stiffness, good when it comes to tonality of the instrument. So, somewhere in the neighborhood or perhaps a little thicker than a regular top is what you should shoot for. Now, keep that outer skin thick enough that you can put your bindings in, scrape it, and sand it, do your finish sanding without going through it. If you go through it, technical term for that is bad, not good. All right. Let's see. Tiago. Tiago, that's my son's name. And I noticed that you put the H in it, Thiago. My son spells it without the H. Do you apply any finish inside the guitar? I generally do not. Let's first of all ask the question, why do you apply the finish inside the instrument? And most people say to help slow down the transfer of moisture. My experience has been that you would really have to put on a lot of finish to really slow down any transfer of moisture or humidity. So that would have a total reason. So let's go to the aesthetic side of things. Some people think it looks cool, which is fine. My experience with that has been, okay, if you want to finish it, how are you going to finish it? Most people put shellac. Well, you can't French polish it because you got a lot of 90-degree angles and corners and crevices that don't lend themselves to French polishing. So you're looking at some type of brush or spray. And that looks pretty good. I like it on, for example, maple guitars. When I did the archtop guitar class with João Casillas in Brazil, he did the inside. It really made the inside of the guitar look great because it pops that flame. Um, on an acoustic guitar, if you look inside there and it's finished, it looks cool. But if you get one little speck of dust, now all of a sudden it looks bad. An unfinished guitar on the inside, the dust doesn't stand out as much. Also, if you ever have to do any repair work and you got a finish on there, sometimes have gluing issues with that. So that's the reason why I don't finish the inside of the guitar. I'm not opposed to it though, if you want to do that. All right. Oh, Elaine says, I bet she's bringing coffee. Did you hear that? That was Elaine that said that. Well, actually, I don't think she is, Elaine, because it's already almost 6:30 in the evening here, and so it's a little late for coffee. However, you guys can't smell it, but I can. She's put a very nice Brazilian cornmeal cake in the oven, and that's called bolo de fubá. So all you Brazilians online here know that bolo de fubá is a great cornmeal cake from Brazil, and I can smell that. It's got some nice cinnamon smell. Boy, I can hardly wait to dive into that when we get done here. So Guitarra Sandoval is from Ecuador. So how you doing down there in Ecuador? Quito, okay. I was supposed to go down to Ecuador this year. I was going to do some filming down there, and then COVID happened. So I had to cancel. But one day I want to make it down to your beautiful country down there and tour around and talk to all the luthiers down there. Some very good luthiers doing great work down there in Ecuador. All right. Let's see here. Robert, what do you think about the torrefied Sitka tops? Pros and cons. Okay, torrefied wood. A few years ago, I was in Canada at a company called Thermal Wood Canada. They're the ones that are doing all of the thermally modified soundboards. Now up there, they started using it for decking material, fascia boards on houses and stuff, because it's very resistant to moisture and therefore cracking, moving, things like that. They discovered that it has something that you can use in Luthier as well. And what that does is it dries it out, and I guess it kind of speeds up the aging process. I was at an event here in Colorado about 7 or 8 years ago, and some of the marketing directors of a very big guitar company were around, and they said, "You want a 1937D whatever? We can give it to you. All we do is take this top and we put it in the oven, and we've analyzed the chemical molecular structure of the 37 whatever, and we can reproduce that, and we can give you exactly that same sound." I reached back for the bullshit flag, and I was going to throw it. I said, wait a minute, come on. But there's people out there claiming that. The advantage that people are claiming of torrefied wood is that it's lighter and drier, so it's basically sped up the aging process. Now, a number of years ago, the big buzzword among luthiers was sinker wood, and the prices went up. And everybody was buying the sinker wood thinking that was the holy grail, that was going to give them the perfect guitar. Not necessarily the case. Now the big buzzword is torrefied wood or thermally modified wood. I'm not sure that that's the only thing you need to guarantee you a great guitar. Perhaps it's one of the small things that will guarantee you a good guitar. However, I've heard some very bad sounding torrefied wood tops on guitars, and I've heard some very good regular tops, newer wood on guitars. guitars. So there's more to it than just that. There's no, magic pill or anything like that. Um, I'm not opposed to using it. Some luthiers are resistant to moisture. Well, glue has moisture in it, so some people think that you can have adhesion issues down the road. We'll see. If you want to experiment with it, fantastic. I generally don't use it. I've had students that have used it though. All right. Greetings from Brazil, David. Olá, como está? Obrigado por ligar aqui no live. There's another one. Robert, how does a luthier get $1 million? Well, that's an old joke that's going around among luthiers. How does a luthier make $1 million? Well, you start with two. And if the luthier is smart, he'll stop, he or she will stop when they still have $1 million left because it's a pretty expensive craft. Although there are other ones that are a lot worse, boats, cars. There's a lot of places you can put your money. And Luthier is probably one of the cheaper ones if you think about it. Oh, it's never too late for coffee. Well, that could be. Bolo de fubá and cafe. All right. Yeah, if you want to bring me some down, Danny, you certainly can. Let's see. Does Royalac have a sanding sealer? Yes, it does. Now, the product that he's talking about is Royalac. And there goes the girl from Ipanema, Miss Brazil, walking behind me there. Um, the question was about Royalac. Royalac, let me first of all talk about what that is. A number of years ago, somebody sent me an email with a YouTube video about how shellac was processed. And it was a great video. It's very well produced. And so I sent the guy an email and said, wow, fantastic video. I really enjoyed it. A lot of great information, very well produced. Come to find out, the person's name is VJ, and he has a company that makes shellac. I think he's in California. And he said, look, I'm developing a new product. Would you be willing to test it for me? And so I tested it for a number of years. Yes, he would come up with products and modifications and things. So Royalac is the name of that product. Basically what it is a shellac-based product with other resins in there. As it cures, it forms a chemical bond that's similar to polyester. Gives you all of the benefits of shellac, but the durability of a film finish type top coat. I really like the product. You can brush it, spray it, French polish it, whatever. It comes in a pre-cat, post-cat, or regular versions. And yes, he does have a sealer that goes underneath it. However, you can just use regular shellac for that. So if you're interested in that product, I highly recommend it. A number of my students have used it also over the years. Let's see. So, Guitarra Sandoval, when I come to Ecuador, we can have a chat with the Luthiers in Quito. We also have excellent coffee. I know you do. I've heard about it. So if I can ever get down there to Ecuador, I would really enjoy to make the trip down there. I was ashamed. I was really upset that I couldn't make it this year because I was really looking forward to it. Let's see. Jeffrey Davis is labor of love. Michael or Michelle, I build guitars differently today, but you got me started. Wow, thanks. And that I'll take that as a compliment because I always tell my students what I present here in my classes and what I present in my video courses is just the starting point. If I have done my job as a teacher, I expect you to take that, adapt it, make it your own, come up with better methods and techniques, and build better instruments than I do. If you are able to do that, then I've done my job. So I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you very much, Michelle. I don't know where you're from, but I certainly appreciate that. Todd Martin is asking, is there any tone or sustain difference between mahogany versus Spanish cedar necks on a classical? Maybe I should add that to the list oh, there's the Bolo de Fuba. Maybe I should add that to the list of topics that are off topic. All right. Hey, thank you, Miss Brazil. Look at that, folks. That is Bolo de Fuba. It's a Brazilian cornmeal cake. It's got a cinnamon topping on it. It's very good. It's a little late for coffee, but coffee washes this down very nicely. Mm-mm. Muito obrigado. So that's very delicious. So mahogany necks. Pode pegar pouquinho de água para mim, por favor? Mahogany necks or cedar necks. My very first guitar was a mahogany neck. It was from an LMI kit almost 25 years ago. I was living in Brazil still at that time, and it was a mahogany neck. Since then, I've always used Spanish cedar because the person who taught me how to make guitars, Antonio Tessarin, and muito obrigado, Antonio, por tudo que você fez para mim. I was just saying thank you for Antonio because I make my living today with the information that Antonio got me started on 25 years ago. And so I'm always grateful to the information that he passed along. I mention his name as often as I can. And by the way, his son, Cesar, is the one that does my website. So if you like my website, that's Cesar. And when I met Cesar, he was about 2 or 3 years old. Now he's doing my website. Mahogany or cedar? I've heard some very bad sounding mahogany necks and great sounding cedar necks and vice versa. There's more to it than just that. Um, I use Spanish cedar necks because they're easier to carve compared to mahogany. Over all my career, there's been a couple mahogany necks I've had to pull a mallet out. I mean, they were like concrete. So I prefer Spanish cedar on my classical guitars. On my classical guitars, and I prefer mahogany on my steel string guitars. It's not for tonal reasons. It's just tradition. That's what I do. Excuse me. You're just a second. I have some water. Very good. All right. But I think there's more to it than just that. That also brings up another question. Dovetail, bolt-on, Spanish heel, which is better? I get clients in here that says, "Oh, it's got to be a dovetail. That's the best sounding, tonally, blah blah blah." And I'll hand them one of my guitars that I know is a bolt-on mortise and tenon. And I say, "All right, play that guitar." "Oh, it sounds great." I said, "What kind of neck joint is it?" "Well, they can't tell you what kind of neck joint it is. They can't tell you what kind of glue you used." You know, I think there's more to it than that. Now, perhaps a bunch of those things all together and they all align on a perfect day, perhaps there's something that will influence the sound. All right. What do you think the easiest pore filling method is these days? Well, the easiest pore filling method, in my opinion, is no pore filling method. Don't fill the pores. That just makes it easy right there. Uh, Pore filling. I've used every product available known to man, even some that you wouldn't traditionally think of as pore filling products. For example, used coffee grounds, red brick ground up into a fine powder, shellac and sawdust, drywall compound. I mean, you name it, I've used it. These days, especially under a French polish finish, I use epoxy because it won't shrink. I think I get my best finishes, especially French polish, those that don't have very many solids. I think I get my best finishes with an epoxy. Now, I sand the epoxy completely off the instrument before I add finish. It's only in the pores. There's no film there between the wood and the top coat. I have a YouTube video, Luthier Tips to Short video out there that you can dial up and show you how I do it. By the way, speaking of YouTube videos, all of my Luthier Tips du Jour videos are on my website. If you just go to o'brienguitars.com, click on the media tab, the drop-down menu comes down, you can click on videos. It takes you to a page, and there's a drop-down menu there. I have my Luthier Tips du Jour classic videos there, Luthier Tips du Jour mailbag videos there, product videos, people playing my guitars, students playing their guitars they built with me. So it's all there. You can see that. But there's a search engine on there now. I have so much content on my website that people were getting lost and couldn't find things. So there's a search engine. So just type in Z-epoxy or something and you'll find it. All right, here we go. There's a lot of different pore fill methods available. Let me get back to that question in just a minute here. Here's usually what happens, and this happens with pore filling products, also with finished products. For example, pore filling. Okay, I'm going to use Z-epoxy. Well, they've never used Z-epoxy and they have a bad experience with it. They don't know how to do it. They haven't dialed it in. And so it doesn't do what they want them to do. And so they discard that. It's not their fault, right? It's the product's fault. They discard that and say, okay, Z-epoxy is no good. I'm not going to use that. And they go with another product, water-based, whatever. And they repeat the experience and say, oh, that doesn't. So it's this vicious cycle. All of them work. You have to learn how to work with them. The same thing goes for finished materials, top coats. People start with lacquer, have a bad experience, and they go to water-based, they go to polyester, UV cured, and learn how to dial it in. Anytime I start working with a new finish, it takes me 4 to 6 guitars to really perfect what I'm doing. So just don't give up on it. Learn to work with it. All right. I hope you're finding this useful. I mean, I'm here in my shop. I feel like I'm just talking to the walls at some point. So I hope you're finding this useful. And we'll carry on here for a few more minutes. We've been at it about 40 minutes. Let's see what ease of carving with Spanish cedar. Yep. Okay. Spanish cedar has a lower average dried mass than under and mahogany. Okay. If you're worried about weight, which on classical guitars we generally are, um, that could be an issue. Let's see. If you got any more questions, keep them coming. I've got a few notes here. Things I wanted to talk about. First of all, was that scholarship fund. Um, uh, you know, this philanthropist that is helping me out with that. You know, it's a labor of love for him, and you know, of course, I'm donating a lot here as well. So we would like to be able to offer the scholarship to a young up and coming luthier. So if feel like you are able to and you want to, please click on that link that's in the chat box there and donate a few bucks just to the scholarship fund there so we can give that opportunity to somebody. The new course, I've already mentioned that with Michael Bashkin. It's now available. We've been working on it for several months, and it's ready to go. By the way, I schedule these things a year or two in advance, and so Michael and I scheduled this last year. We were finally able to get to it this year. Even in a COVID year, we were able to make it happen. And so there's some great information there. Most comprehensive source I think of for that. Let's see. There's another question. Do you seal with shellac and then pour fill with Z-epoxy? No, I don't. I just put Z-epoxy directly on the wood. Um, but then I sand it all the way back off and just leave it in the pores, and then I put shellac directly over that. Now, if I were going to go on with another product like a lacquer or something, perhaps I would put a seal coat of shellac on there, and I still sand back to bare wood. I don't leave any epoxy in the mix. Okay, Robert, very good, very informative. I'm glad you find this useful. Another one, I use Spanish cedar for some of the bracing in my guitars. They sound like crap, but they smell great. That's great. Spanish cedar is a great wood. I also use it for kerfing. I use it for back braces. I don't use it for soundboard braces. But yeah, you're right. It does make it smell good. And you know that's part of the package. When you deliver a guitar to somebody, you know the first impression, you know, the smell is part of it. Also the weight. Um, Spanish cedar was actually used for necks on steel string for a number of years, so it's a good wood for that. Let's see. I love the cardboard acoustic guitar. Oh, okay. That was a gimmick I made a few years ago. I was going to a guitar show and I wanted a gimmick to help bring them into the booth. And so I made what I called the cardboard guitar. It's actually made out of a matte type board, like picture frame board, or what architects use to do their mock-ups and their models. And so I made the back and side material out of that. Everything else is made out of wood. And it actually sounds pretty good. It's behind me there somewhere. It's the one in the lower corner there on that side. And it's there. It's a gimmick. I keep it around. I play it every now and then. It actually sounds pretty good. Let's see. Robbie, can you speak some about storing wood, the do's and the don'ts? Yes. I live in Colorado. It's very dry. So I'm lucky. Bob Benedetto one time was here in my shop and he told me, hey, Robbie, you got it made, man. You can store wood in a dry environment and you can work in a dry environment. I don't really have to climate control the humidity other than to bump it up a little bit sometimes. Um, I've got a whole bunch over there stacked on the other side of my shop. I'm not going to show it to you, but stacks and stacks and stacks of wood. Some people like to sticker it. I generally don't because it's dry here in Colorado. I just stack it all up and wrap some shrink wrap around both ends to keep it stable. Um, but yeah, if you live in a higher environment, a high humidity environment, perhaps you want to sticker it. Be careful with the sticker you use though. If it's a light colored wood and you use a dark colored sticker, then sometimes you can leave staining on there. What is your opinion about guitars built with balsa wood, lattice, and carbon fiber? Fine. Balsa wood alone is not structurally sound. You're going to get some movement and some creep over time. I learned this with Trevor Gore. Trevor Gore comes to my shop every year and gives a 3-day masterclass on modal tuning. We couldn't make it happen this year. He couldn't get out of Australia. We were open enough here in the States we could do it, but he couldn't get out of Australia. So we're going to throw that into 2021. That's one of the things on my list to talk about is things coming up in 2021. And so Trevor will be back in 2021 to offer that class. Some of you on the chat box here have taken his class. So balsa wood, yeah, you're gonna have to put carbon fiber in it, and lattice brace. That's fine. I'm more of a traditional builder, but whatever it takes to get the sound that you like. Jose Romanitos told me that one time. He says, Robbie, don't get locked into the plans. Everything works. Torres, Hauser, Ramirez, Bouger, the Smallman, lattice brace school, they all work. People like all of them. So find one that works for you and satisfies your musical taste. Let's see here. You were talking about Brazilian crackwood dwindling. Any thoughts on rich light and rock light? Yeah, I got a couple of things here behind me. Let's see here. So this is rosewood. And I got these from LMI. I get the names mixed up. Rich light, rock light. One is ebony and one is rosewood. I don't remember. But these are bridges that I made out of that composite type material. It's not composite. It's actually wood. Um, and I love it. I mean, it's very light. I've never actually put it on an instrument yet, though. I'm dying to do that one day. But it's about half as much as a regular bridge. One of the problems, and this is more of a psychological problem, is if you look at it, it's flat sawn. I like it. I think it looks cool. But that could be a psychological negative point if people worry about that. They think, wait a minute, he didn't use quartersawn wood there. Well, if they knew the history of what the material is, then that wouldn't bother them. Um, I like it. Ebony, I think it's called Richlight, or I don't know. But ebony is fine too. It bends easily. Here's a couple of pieces of it. It bends easily, works just like wood. So binding material, side material, yeah, fantastic. How about it? What is the downside to not filling the pores? No downside whatsoever other than visually. Now, one of the most beautiful finishes I ever saw was by Trevor Gore one time in Australia, believe it or not. He brought a guitar in for one of his master classes. It was, what's the wood that looks like koa? Australian blackwood, I think. And it's a porous wood. But he didn't build the finish enough that the pore started to stand out. It's just a couple light wash coats of the finish. So the more build you get, the more you need to fill those pores. If it's just a light wash coat or two, then you're generally okay not filling the pores. Think about marketability though. If you're going to sell the instrument, you know, people have predetermined notions of what a finish should look like. So perhaps you should think about that. Let's see. I'm teaching myself to use a hand plane. Any tips for a beginner? I have trouble with the plane stalling. Yes. Hand tools. I love working with hand tools. They can be your best friend or your worst enemy. If you have veins popping out of your forehead and sweat rolling down, something's wrong. Either you need to evaluate your technique or you need to evaluate the sharpness and the setup of the tool. And that's generally the case. So I have students sometimes come in and they grab like my spoke shave and they're fighting. And I grab it like this and just use it like that and show them, look, don't fight the tool. Let the tool do the work. You don't have to fight it. So that's the first sign that something's wrong. If sweat's pouring down your forehead and you're forcing it, it should be very therapeutic. And once you learn that, there's a certain amount of finesse with sharpening and setting up and using the tool. Once you learn that, it's a joy to work with those hand tools. There's a lot of YouTube stuff available about how to set up and use hand tools and sharpen them. I have a sharpening course. That's how important I think it is. I did my own sharpening course on tools that are used with Luthier, in Luthier. So I suggest you start there. Let's see, Rocklight versus Ebony. Ignoring price, do you have a preference? I'm in Orlando, by the way, and thanks for doing this. I'll be glad to donate. Well, thank you, Todd. I certainly appreciate that. No, I don't have a preference. Um, Antonio Tessarini, who taught me how to build guitars, he's been saying, for ever since I met him 25 years ago, hey, I wish they'd come up with a substitute for ebony. Well, now they have, because ebony moves around. It's hard, it's brittle, it's expensive, it cracks. Now they have, so why not use it? Sure, and we may be forced to use it, as our raw materials are dwindling. Let's see, Jose Pereira, boa noite. Thank you for tuning in, Jose. I appreciate that. What Brazilian wood would you recommend for the soundboard? There's a Brazilian wood that a lot of people were using or are using. I don't remember the name of it right now, but it's a spruce variety. There's the oh, I'm sure there's a Brazilian on here that can type the name into the chat box here. There's also those woods they have a lot in Campos do Jordão. It might be the same wood. Um, I can't, Araraquara. No, that's a city. I can't remember the name. It's on the tip of my tongue. But there is one wood that a lot of Brazilian builders are using um, for soundboard material. And I know soundboard material is a problem for you folks in Brazil. So every time I go down, I generally take some for you guys to help you out. Do you use bullseye shellac from Dan Caldwell? Generally, no. I like to mix my own shellac flakes. That way I know how fresh they are. I'm not opposed to it. Some people on my chat group, I run a private chat group. I've been running that for over 10, 12 years now. I have over 1,000 members on it. And some people there have reported curing issues with the bullseye shellac. Now, there's two types of bullseye shellac. One is called seal coat, one's called shellac. The shellac has wax in it. The seal coat is de-waxed. See, that's the first problem you have to overcome. Make sure you get the de-waxed version, which is called seal coat. And it comes with two different labels. I think one's red and one's yellow. But I generally like to mix my own. Dan is looking for a source of black wood. I had a couple sets I sold here recently. LMI generally has it every now and then. Let's see. Can I use a stationary buffer to do the buffing out of a French polish finish? Yes, you can. You have to be very careful because heat breaks down shellac very quickly. You catch an edge, you're going through it. It's going to melt. And I usually buff the shellac finish out by hand. And I don't notice a difference between buffing on a buffing wheel and buffing by hand. And there's a lot less risk of something happening. So I usually do it by hand. How long should the finish cure? Well, that depends on how you applied it. Did you spray it? Did you French polish it? Did you brush it? My French polish finishes here in my class are very thin. I was taught to keep them very thin. And so, you know, the next day we can put it in a case and off it goes, no problem. But if you're doing a very thick one, making it look like glass, you know, you're looking at several weeks cure time. Since I have the buffer low speed, I would like to use it. You can use it, you know, no problem. Just be careful. Here we go. Araraquara. There you go. That's the Brazilian wood. It's a Paraná pine. And Paraná is a state in the southern part of Brazil. Paraná pine. I used to see these trees up in Campo de Jordão in the state of São Paulo. And people are using that for soundboard material in Brazil. Do you have any strong feelings about the move to urban woods, and have you tried any? No, I don't. I don't mind. You know, in my opinion, nothing's off limits. Whatever you have access to, that's fine. Um, and sometimes a lot of your urban woods are, you know, nice old growth stuff. You just have to let it cure and things. Um, Once again, think about the marketability, though. People expect, you know, traditional woods for instruments, unfortunately. So think about that. Let's see. Do you use epoxy on the neck? No, I don't. Why or why not? Well, the reason why is because I sand the epoxy all the way off to bare wood. And if I put it on the neck, it's going to soak up into that end grain around the transition from the neck into the peg head and also on the heel block. And since I sand it all the way off to bare wood, guess what? I just created a lot of work for myself to get all of that off of there. If not, I've got some blotchiness. So on my necks, what I use is shellac and sawdust. I have a YouTube video that shows how to do that. And that's what I prefer there. By the way, Australians also use the wood from an Araucaria species, the bunya pine. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for letting me know that. That's very interesting. Any thoughts on using walnut for fretboards? No, it's fine. Once again, think about the marketability, the tradition. A lot of people, you know, especially in the classical world, if you see a walnut fretboard, it's not tradition. People might shy away from it. I had a person come from Texas this year to build with me right about the height of the COVID lockdown, the quarantine. It was in March. He drove up from Texas, and we were going to build an all Texas wood guitar. He had a source on his farm there from a bunch of walnut. So we used walnut back and sides, walnut fretboard, walnut neck. I mean, it was a walnut guitar. Sounded great. It's a big dread, and I had a fun time building it with the student. So yeah, I'm fine with that. But just think about the marketability. All right, a couple more things I have here on my list. 2021 schedule, that will be on my site here probably the next month or so. Once again, contact me though before that goes up, because when it does, it's generally already full. Some new things for 2021 coming up. I'm going to be offering virtual classes. Now, this quarantine thing and the COVID has made a lot of companies, a lot of people rethink things, especially education. My daughter's doing online school, so yeah, we've had to rethink a lot of things. And I've been talking to some people, and you know who you are, and they're on the chat group here. Thank you very much for helping with the technical side of stuff because uh, I'm a luthier. I'm not. I had my son to get this thing up and running for me here. Uh, so virtual classes are coming in 2021. I'm still going to offer my week-long private one-on-one group class or class here in my shop because there's no substitute for that. I'm thinking about doing some virtual master classes, my French polish class, my rosette making class, perhaps my voicing classes. And when I put my schedule up, those will be announced. It will be spread out over several weeks since we don't have a time constraint, and we'll do it online. So yeah, that's going to be very fun. I'm looking forward to that. Trevor Gore is going to be coming back in 2021. Paco Chorobo, there's talking about him coming back, the Spanish luthier, and we do the flamenco guitar building class here in my shop, and that's fun time. WD Custom Guitars, venha para Brasil, meu amigo. I hope I can. He's asking me to come to Brazil. Oh, by the way, yeah, I do have to be in Brazil next year. Yeah, as a matter of fact, um, I have to go down to do some business there with my green card. I have a Brazilian green card. I have to go down there every year now and then. Also, I have family there, my wife's family, so we have to go down. So yes, I will be in Brazil next year. If you want to set something up, go ahead and set something up. I'll be happy to come down. All right, a couple of other things. Top secret. This is top secret. I'm announcing it right here for the first time in this live YouTube presentation. A new online course. I've been asked to do an inlay course. No, I do inlay work. I learned from the best. One of the best. Dave Nichols at Custom Pearl. I know how to do inlay. But anytime I put out a course, I like to find somebody that has really come out in that particular subject or field, and they're well known for that. And so Larry Robinson and I have been working on an inlay course together. And we're in the initial stages. It's going to take us a long time to actually get it out, but that probably will be coming in 2021 as well. So looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to, I've been working with Larry here off and on, and he sent me, in fact, a big file today, and it's going to be good. It's going to be very good. Anyway, from beginning all the way up to advanced. So I look forward to that. Also, there's another one here. Now, this one is super top secret. I can't tell you who it is or what the topic is going to be, but I've been working with this luthier. I will tell you this, the luthier is from Italy, and that narrows it down, right? But we've been working on a course for about 6 months now, and the COVID, I was going to go there and film it because COVID came along. I couldn't go to Italy this year, so that person is filming and sending to me. And I'm very excited about this course. I've been wanting to do a course on this topic for a number of years, and I just haven't found the right person. I've approached a number of people about it. It's never worked out. So that one is coming up. Let's see. Here's another comment from Brazil. Hello, Robbie. Cheers from Brazil. I'm son of Jair Marques. Oh, Jair. Jair was one of my students. He's taken several of my classes when I go to Brazil. So, oh, yeah. Um abraço. Good to hear from you. All right. Thanks to all those who have come to build with me this year. This has been a crazy year with the COVID thing. It's been crazy for a lot of people, but it's been crazy for me as well. I've been quarantined for 20 years, so I didn't really notice that aspect of it other than that my wife and kids were around all the time. But it did hit my pocketbook quite severely like it did for a lot of people. But I'm surviving. I've been very blessed. So thank you very much for those that have actually come and taken classes with me under the circumstances for this year. Also, thank you very much to all those who have purchased my online courses. I certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now, we've been on here for about an hour. I've covered about what I wanted to talk about. I was going to go into tooling. Since I've been doing a lot of fretwork here lately, not only with filming of the Michael Bashkin's fretwork course, Oh, by the way, that course is 10% off for the next 2 weeks. So if you're thinking about getting that, go type in the promo code Fretwork at checkout. Just go to my website. All the instructions are there. And I hope I know you're going to enjoy that, but it's 10% off for the next 2 weeks. We always do it generally a promotional code when we launch the product. In addition to that, I don't know what happened over here in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but all of a sudden guitars just started showing up in the mail, on the doorstep. People locally were bringing me, and a majority of them needed fret jobs. And so I had a bunch of tools all lined up here on my bench to talk about, but it's you guys have filled up all of the time here, and perhaps I'll leave that for the next chat. If you enjoyed the chat, let me know. If you found this beneficial, let me know. I'm always very concerned about people's time, so I appreciate you spending a Saturday evening with me here in my shop, um, and taking the time away from your personal lives, your families, your friends, perhaps work. I appreciate you doing that, and I value everybody's time. So thank you for spending your time with me. And if you enjoyed this time together, perhaps this is something I can continue. Uh, it doesn't take much for me to do this kind of thing. So um, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And perhaps I'll do this again. We can make it a weekly thing if you want, or perhaps at least a couple of times a month. Thank you very much. I don't know how to end this stream. Oh, wait, there's a big red button right there at the bottom that says end stream. So I'm going to click on that button. Hopefully it works. Over and out.